In my novice years of being a new Christian 20 years ago, I learned the basics of what is called eschatology, which is the study of the end times when Jesus returns and gathers his church and destroys all the unbelievers. I became sure that Jesus would return in my lifetime for some reason. I just felt it in my spirit, some might say. And now it's 20 years later, and I've learned a lot more since I first started this infatuation with my new faith. And I have even more reasons to believe he's coming back soon. Just as an interesting side note, right when I started writing this, a huge earthquake just happened in Northern California. I have no idea how much damage there is yet, but what amazing timing. Now, I've been predicting all in my previous videos that the entire planet will experience a great earthquake, as it says in Revelation 6:12. I started that prediction in 2011, and it still hasn't come to pass. But like Noah concerning the coming flood, and Abraham concerning the coming miracle child, I just knew all this time it was coming within my lifetime. So I've been a watchman on the wall all this time. I stay informed of world news and keep my eyes on what's in the sky. The gradual day-to-day nature of it could easily make someone fall asleep, and that's why the church fell asleep after just a handful of centuries after Christ. It can be discouraging when seemingly nothing is happening that seems to progress prophecy. But things have changed. I have noticed so much stuff going on in the world right now that finally starts to make it look like the final curtain is rising and the play is finally close to starting. The Bible describes a gradual escalation called the beginning of sorrows, and we've been seeing it for centuries already in the wars and famines and plagues, and don't forget earthquakes that have already happened over the last 2,000 years and are still happening now. But at some point, the boiling needs to begin. We can now see the potential players in this play. Trump, Elon, and Israel have all become enigmas for the whole world to see. The return of Trump and the massive changes he intends to implement to the USA is, I believe, directly related to the rise of the first beast. And Elon might be his second beast if my previous prediction of it being the Pope is wrong. And I haven't even mentioned what Israel has been doing yet. I'm not sure I want to. As I've said repeatedly in previous videos, I can't tell the future. I'm never going to try to prophesy a specific event on a specific day, but I will stand by the predictions made in my King James Bible based on a non-allegorical interpretation of it. And that great earthquake of Revelation 6:12, along with everything else connected to it in the rest of that chapter, has certainly never happened yet and will come to pass eventually. Meanwhile, as we wait for the sixth seal to open, I can see how the world is getting very fed up with Israel. There is a great division surrounding them, of course, those who support them being there and those who don't. But not until now has there been the kind of conflict that we've recently seen. Iran is a big deal now, and Israel's decision to reclaim the land, according to Scripture, is an even bigger deal. The word Zionism is barely understood by anyone supporting Israel. Why? Because of dispensationalism. I actually speculated years ago that a lot of things would happen because of the commonly held false beliefs of a popular brand of Christianity known as dispensationalism. This new set of teachings that was concocted mostly in the 19th and early 20th centuries, but was never taught by anyone in all of church history before it. Dispensationalism created an entirely new belief in the church about who Israel is and who the church is in God's eyes. For all of church history up to this point, it was only taught that they were kicked out of their land again in 70 AD because they rejected their Messiah. Nobody ever taught that they'd come back again as a bloodline nation. It was naturally assumed that their dispersion into the world would dilute their ancestry and they'd never gain a national status again, like the Hittites or Hivites or any of the other families that got wiped out in the Old Testament. But world history has documented an interesting thing. It turns out that they didn't get diluted out of existence. Apparently, some of them stuck together and went from Gentile country to Gentile country, getting themselves involved in their politics. It has been documented how a group of people called Jews has been banished from all these various Gentile countries. They got themselves kicked out for some reason over and over again. One example of this is that Christopher Columbus had to leave because the Jews got kicked out. Then he discovers America. So along comes dispensationalism, which ultimately started because of rabbinical and Jesuit lies that Darby and Scofield latched onto. And it created the brand new false teaching that the bloodline Hebrews, which we tend to call Jews today, are God's chosen people and deserve their land back. Scofield's reference Bible came out in 1909. World War I started 4 years later and was the precursor to modern Israel, which formed right after World War II. Both of these wars were about modern Israel taking the land, and both wars were actually predicted by Albert Pike. So dispensationalism has divided the world into those who think modern Israel are God's chosen people and those who think they are occupiers in stolen land. And the bizarre twist here is that it's generally the unbelievers of the world, the Muslims especially, of course, who rightfully don't believe that they should have returned. And it's the supposed Bible believers who are completely wrong about who they actually are in biblical prophecy. Modern Israel is fulfilling biblical prophecy, but not in the way dispensationalists think they are. And I see the coming Trump administration being completely fooled by dispensationalism. They will support the land grab and think they're doing God a favor. It has even been claimed that Trump is considered their Messiah. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll save them from the fiery end that Scripture prophesies. With what we see going on in the Middle East these days, it is no doubt that the final act is coming soon. There will be no pre-trib rapture. When the great earthquake happens, don't listen to the liars who will claim the rapture's going to happen any second now. You will still need to endure unto the end, and there's at least 4 more years of prophecy that will still need to unfold from that point. And we may even see Trump rebuild their temple. But know this, people, when Christ returns, he will resurrect the saints, change those of us saints still alive, and gather us all into the air. Then when the 7 vials full of the wrath of God are complete, God's real Israel, the church, will be given the land for 1,000 years.